Where do you spend your energy on? You spend so much energy on what? Watching TV. Or we go again. Barrenness. If I separate myself from Christ the vine and invest my energies in something else, you become barren. Like Elizabeth was barren. I know what's going to happen. I will produce no fruits. Remember, John 15 talks about you must bear fruit. And a good tree is gauged by its own fruit. A good fruit bears good fruit. A good tree bears good fruit. Eventually you will wither and be thrown out like a dry branch. There's no way you can bear fruit if you're separated from the vine. There's no way. Abundant fruit. Does your life produce fruit for others? Ask yourself that question. Does your life produce fruit for others? You can work like Miracle Grow for other people. Make them grow. I want to produce abundant fruits. I want to help bring about a change in this world. I've tried different ways and I know that only united to the vine can I bear lasting fruits for Christ's kingdom. And this is the way the Father is glorified. So my life will produce fruit for others. Thursday, my love for the church. Christ and His church. Keep my commandments and remain in my love. So He says. He's not only talking about the 10 Commandments, but also the church. What is the church? The church is Christ's extension through time. Christ, yes. The church, no. Can we say that? Yeah, I love Jesus, but not the church. But not the church. How can you still say that? The church is the mystical body of Christ. The mystical body of Christ means Christ cannot be separated from the church. They're inseparable. Christ is the head, the church is the body. How can you separate the head from the body? Number 2, God's chosen ministers. I remember what St. Francis said. You were in Assisi. Did you see that what St. Francis said? If I were to be in front of an angel and a priest, I will bow first before the priest. Right? I will bow first before the priest. Why? Because they are God's chosen ministers. You chose the apostles to continue your work of redemption through the ages. Why do we have Eucharist? Oh, I erased it. We have the Eucharist because of the priests. So, sinners that they may be, some of them are more sinners than most of us. But that doesn't change the situation. They're hovering hands over those gifts. Will change the bread into the body of Christ. And the wine into the blood of Christ. So I want to support the parish with joy, giving my time, and my financial sacrifices. You know, when I do my income taxes, people's income taxes, one of the questions I ask is, how about your tithing in the church? And some of them even laugh. I see the salary, of course. This is how much you made during the year. How much did you give to the church? Because that's a deductible expense. $60. What? $60 in a year? Okay, 120. You know that. See, that's how they look at it. But if you are truly a child of God, and living your life as one, you will support the church. You give your time and you give your financial resources. Number 3, the Pope. He's the rock on which you chose to build your church because he has kept a straight path the world recognizes his moral authority. John 15, 9-11. Friday, a new commandment. Let me ask you, were you forced to love your spouse? Did someone force you? Other than TV shows, but in real life. Has anyone been forced here to love? Carmen, were you forced to? No? So you really accepted him. Okay? Fortunately, right? Okay, that's good. So, look at this. Love is not a sentiment. It's an act of will. God does not demand of us a feeling which we ourselves are incapable of producing. We cannot be ordered to like someone or to fall in love with someone. But we can choose to love our enemies. In other words, you chose to love. You were not forced to love someone. You were not ordered or commanded to like someone. And even more important, when we experience God's love for us, the joy of being loved leads us to want to respond to that love. When you feel God's love to you, you feel obligated to respond back to the love. It's hard to respond if there's no love. But God is love. Why does it seem so difficult for some to respond back in love? Remember, God has loved us first. While we were sinners, He chose to love us. So John chapter 15 says we must respond to this love from God. The only response to love is what? Love. Right? When you love God, you recognize His presence, you accept His will, you accept spiritual direction, you persevere, you acknowledge your own faults, you live simply, and you're honest to yourself, and you're willing to learn from others, and you listen to people, and you speak kindly to others. So you grow spiritually. There you go. Because you respond to God's love. Number 2, friends forever. Oh, I hear that, especially among girls. We're friends forever. Like love, friendship is easily misrepresented in today's world. A lot of so-called friends are only friends for convenience. If you want to experiment, call your friends and tell them you won the lottery. Or call some people you know. Tell them you won the lottery. You will have many relatives all of a sudden. It's more than convenience. Mutual tolerance or mutual utility. You know what it means, mutual utility? You can use me, I can use you. So it's be good for all of us. Like business. You know, in business, it's like that. In business, who do you mingle with? Those who will help you in your business. Friends not only share love, they share secrets and intimate knowledge. God's will is no longer for me an alien will. It's now my own will based on the realization that God is in fact more deeply present to me than I am to myself. It's beautiful. Do you share secrets with God? Do you know Him? Do you have your knowledge of God intimately? That's what we're hoping to achieve in the Bible class also. So we know God on a very personal basis. If you remember John chapter 10 last week, remember the gospel last week? The Good Shepherd John 10, the good shepherd laid down his life for the sheep. I called him by name. My sheep know me. Remember that? My sheep know me. So if you are truly a sheep of God, you should know him. How can you be sheep to God if you do not know him? And how can you know him if you don't study the scriptures? Right? How in the world? St. Jerome says that. That's why I put that in the act. Ignorance of scriptures is ignorance of Christ. I didn't say that. St. Jerome did. One doctor of the church. So we have to study the scriptures. But again, many are called, but very few are chosen. Number 3, chosen to bear fruit. Jesus' commands are few, but they all have to do with love. That's why, this is beautiful. Look at this. Jesus has few commands, but look at this enumeration. He says, do this in memory of me. What does it mean, do this in memory of me? Do what? Do what in memory of him? Does that occur to you? What is that this? What is that? Love? Yeah, baby. Eucharist? Do this in memory of me. Very, very clearly is the Eucharist, right? Very clearly. On a daily basis, if you can. I know some people here do. I must admit I don't, but I wish I do. Love one another, he says. Love your enemies. You know, Alma has she has a nephew, and was talking about love one another. And you know what he told me? That's why I love the girls in the neighbor's house. I love all the girls, he says. Love one another, he said. Love your enemies. Go and make disciples of all nations. If this love is authentic, grown from the vine of his love and great in sacrifice, it will bear fruit. If the love is authentic, what does it mean authentic?
Genuine.
Yeah, aeropostal. Right? What's that? Authentic something. If your love is authentic, if it's genuine, if it's true, it will bear fruit. It will bear fruit. Last sentence. What others most need from me then is not material goods or consolation, not even my friendship, but an experience of God's love for them, namely the knowledge of Christ. That is what is most needed now in the world. Knowledge of Jesus Christ. That's where I draw my strength and inspiration for doing what I'm doing. You know, it takes time to prepare all this every week. It takes time. But somehow I managed to squeeze this in because of this inspiration. I have reason to believe that I have been chosen to bear fruit. Just as each one of us have been. Do you know that you have been chosen to bear fruit? Because you are children of God. You are chosen to bear fruit. The question is, do you? Do you bear fruit? Only you can answer that. Saturday, the master and the slave. 1. This is John 15. It's all about John this week. Bearing the burden. The world hated me first. Jesus says, remember, they hated me first. So expect to be hated by the world. This is an incredible story of the Gospels. Christ came and the culture was against him. And as he progresses, the forces of antagonism got worse. This was a real burden for Christ. The burden of a parent whose children turn against him. Imagine that. Jesus is God. We are his children.